First time G-Stack's giving out a best bet. Typically, the honors go to the winners from the week before, but because we got some fresh blood, G-Stack, you're up first. Who's the best bet this week and why?
All right. People don't like to step in front of this Ravens train, Rob, but I do. I love how beautiful trains are, and I oftentimes don't make the best decisions in life. I already talked about how underrated this Seattle defense is, but I wanted to add that Lamar's best game against Detroit was correlated with Mark Andrews playing his best game and having multiple touchdowns. Seattle defending tight ends this year, they give up 4 catches a game, less than 50 yards, and they've given up 1 touchdown all year. If they take away Lamar's number 1 weapon, it will go a long way in slowing down this Ravens offense. I think Seattle is top 10 in a lot of defensive metrics, and I like the way they match up here against this Ravens offense that flashes greatness, but also has a lot of ugly in there. A lot was made about Geno's struggles against man coverage heading into the Cleveland game, especially because Baltimore plays man at a top 10 rate. Outside of the 2 interceptions, though, I thought Geno was pretty good. He was 19th in EPA per play and success rate. Not good, but not bad. I'm not expecting much of the way of scoring in this game, and my handicap isn't predicated on Seattle needing a lot of points to cover. Baltimore is middle at the pack at creating turnovers, and if Seattle can avoid more than 1, then they probably have a chance to win this game, or at the very least, it'll come down to a close finish. And, of course, if all else fails, the back door might be open. Give me Seattle +6, -105 as my best bet.
All right. G-Stack George with the Seattle Seahawks. I won last week. Eric should have won, but he didn't. I won last week. I'm going next. I'm going to Monday Night Football, and I'm taking the LA Chargers and the New York Jets under the total of 41, -113. I put the price that it's good to -119. Now, listen, people, this actually moved while we were on air. I didn't bet it myself. I'm not front running these plays like trying to get the best numbers or whatever. So bear with me. We're updating. This is the real time number, but I really like the under in this game. New York Jets offensive line. Connor McGovern hurt last week. Wes Schweitzer hurt last week. They both go to IR. A guard/center for them. Joe Hitman dealing with an injury. He would be replacing either of those guys. It's disastrous for the O-line. Worse than it's been in a long time for them. Look at other teams when they've had cluster O-line injuries. You've seen the Giants this year. Disastrous. Now, in terms of pace of play, Zach Wilson, no huddle, just 4% of plays this year. They don't run fast with him. They run the ball. They know what his limitations are. Look at last week's game against the Giants. It was a slog for them on offense. He faces pressure on 43% of his dropbacks because he holds the ball for a long time, doesn't know where to throw it, and he's very conscious of making mistakes nowadays. The Jets games this year, they've only exceeded 43 points 1 time this season. That was at Denver, and that's because the Denver defense had like a million injuries. Their defense on the other side of things, like solid. They held Buffalo to 16 points at home. They held KC to 23, which is a very low output for the Chiefs, obviously. Eagles to 14. Chargers don't play with pace. Justin Herbert, no huddle, 6.8% of the time. Most of that's inside 2 minutes of each half. They lost Mike Williams. They don't have the downfield threat. The new game plan is exactly what we saw last week on Sunday Night Football against the Bears, where they are content to run the ball, take their 4 or 5 yard passes down the field. I think this number is too high. We don't know about weather yet, but it's a Jets home game in November. Probably not going to be good either. That's another factor as well. So New York Jets, LA Chargers, under 41, -113. All right. Eric, last week, you got the L. You got the CLV, good CLV on Baltimore. You had the cover probability at like 99% at one point in the game. But you got the L. It's a stain on your record. It's time to rebound. What's the rebound bet this week?
It is. I've been lucky enough to have Patriots +3 against the Raiders, as well as last week's Baltimore -8.5. I'm going to go with a quarterback that I've maligned and been maligned for maligning, and that is Sam Howell getting 3 +101. Good out, a decent ways. New England's an interesting case study in a team that our prior beliefs on, our sort of aura about, it just simply doesn't stand up. Sam Howell is going to probably set the record for number of sacks taken by a quarterback in a season. New England this year, only the Saints, Jags, and Bears on defense have generated fewer sacks as a percentage of dropbacks. When Sam Howell is actually able to get the ball out, he's been phenomenal. Last week, he was, basically, he only took a sack in the last drive of the game. They were very efficient moving the football. New England allows, a top half of the league average depth of target, which is also kind of what Sam Howell is trying to be, a very, high variance quarterback. And I just think the market's overcorrecting for losing Sweat and losing Young. They are two players that are positive to the point spread, but not nearly as much, I think, as this movement suggests. So I'm going to go with the Washington Commanders +3.
Eric Eager, Fade and Right Angle Sports. You love to see it. Head to head. Boom. I think a lot of that price was like the move was anticipating Washington making some deadline day moves, which they did as well. We also forget, Kendrick Bourne tore his ACL. Devontae Parker got concussed last week. I don't know if you look at the Patriots receiving core without those two guys, but Jalen Reagor is like their second best receiver, I think, after those guys. So it might be an absolute shit show for them. Hitman, you alluded to it earlier when we were breaking it down, and someone just started popping the screen, man. Boom. They couldn't get enough of that over in Bengals and Bills, which costs you a point on your best bet. But for those who missed it earlier, let the people know what it's going to be this week.
I'll tell you what, if you're backing me on a best bet, you got some guts betting that up from 48.5 to 49.5, whoever that is. But I still like the over 49.5 in this Buffalo Cincinnati game. The Bills defense is 29th in EPA per play since the injuries to Matt Milano, Tre'Davious White, Daquan Jones, and the Bengals defense 26 in defensive pass success rate this year. It's just been two defenses that have regressed from what they were last year. I really like that Buffalo started running Josh Allen again, 7 carries for 41 yards last week. Dawson Knox leaving, going on short-term IR, led to a lot more 3 and 4 wide receiver sets for Buffalo. And it also led to a 32% no huddle rate, which was the Bills' highest that they've had in 4 years. They also went 6% higher in situation neutral pass rate. So I think that the Bills are going back to the offense that has worked in previous years. And Joe Burrow, there's been no offense that was upgraded more after the performance that he had against the 49ers. The Bengals lead the NFL in pass rate over expectation the last 5 weeks. It's 2 offenses that are trending up, 2 defenses that are not nearly the same as years past. Give me the over.
All right. And you know who has the best price on the under in case you want to fade it, if you want to fade this in market? Of course, our sponsor, Pinnacle. Best price in market on the under if you do want to fade the Hitman. Although, it's crazy, Hitman, because if you had just made this a lean instead of a best bet, it would have won. And now, and honestly,
that went from a total of 70 to a total of 7, just with you putting in the best bet column.
Honestly, this is the game that lands 49 now, right? Because we were talking about it as part of the leans, and he's like, yeah, I like the over 48.5. Someone goes out and bets it to 49.5. And it lands 49. 28-21 Bengals.
Whoever blasted it in market after I said that I like the over 48.5, you're a cruel person. If it lands 49, you owe me a beer, a dinner, something.
You owe him something. You heard it from Hitman. You owe him something.